If you don't understand the system of white supremacy, then everything that they do will only confuse you. The general population doesn't know what's happening, and it doesn't even know it doesn't know. Therefore, those of us who know must teach. African proverb. The truth is the opposite from everything that you've been misled to believe. Here's an example that provides a mental illustration of our true reality. Imagine that there exists a field of talking sheep, and upon a hill overlooking the field of talking sheep, there stood a large house where the shepherds lived. When these shepherds sit down and have meetings inside the house, making plans of how they intend to exploit the sheep, those plans are never told to the talking sheep. Whenever those shepherds present any information to the talking sheep, it's always false information that are designed to make the sheep think and behave in ways benefiting the shepherds. The sheep does not function based on what is true. The sheep instead function based upon false information presented to them by the shepherds. The shepherd instead function based upon the true narratives that are withheld from the sheep. This presented example illustrates the true relationship that exists between the ruling class and the masses. The information that we receive from the ruling class are not true. They are false information designed to keep us, the masses, thinking and behaving in ways that meets the objectives of the ruling elites. This is why the general population is often referred to as the sheep masses or the blind sheep. It is also the reason behind the old saying that tells us to stay woke and don't be blind sheeps. I realize that now when I say the word woke, it now there's negative connotation. This is because the ruling elites co-opted the word woke and turned it into something negative to keep us thinking and behaving as blind sheep. I digress. I presented the example of the sheep and the shepherd to illustrate the true underlying scenario that exists between the ruling class and the masses. What we are told by the ruling class are not true. They are false information that are designed to keep us thinking and behaving in ways that serves and protects the interests of the ruling class. The truth is the opposite of everything that you've been misled to believe. We, the masses, does not function based upon true. We, the masses, instead function based upon false information presented to us by the ruling class. It is the ruling elites who function based upon what is actually true. I'm sorry for sounding redundant, but I had to kind of help you to understand that. Now, I'm going to demonstrate that the masses are functioning based upon false narratives that are completely different from the true narratives that the ruling elites function based upon. And I'm going to demonstrate this fact using the Go Back to Africa theme. Often whenever a member of the white sheep masses have arguments with black people, they often tell us to go back to Africa. They say this while accusing us of being the leeches of the society that are ruining their great white nation. These held perceptions these are formulated by narratives and media images that have been repeatedly fed to the white masses by the ruling elites' fraudulent propaganda campaigns. Now let's look at how the white ruling elites responds to the issue of blacks returning to Africa. It's important to observe how they respond, given that they have access to the true narratives about African Americans, the true narratives that the masses doesn't have access to. When Marcus Garvey attempted to implement the largest exodus of African Americans to return to Africa, his plan was halted by the U.S. government and he was thrown into federal prison. He was stopped from returning millions of African Americans back to Africa. And he wasn't the only one this was done to. He's merely the most popular one that we know of. Many African Americans that had also attempted to implement massive Black Back to Africa movements also had their efforts stopped by the U.S. government. What you're witnessing in this situation is a disconnect between the white masses and the ruling white elites. Because of the constant fraudulent, negative, marginalizing narratives about African Americans that the white ruling elites have propagated for many centuries, many will naturally make the assumption that the ruling elites don't want African Americans leaving because they want us to stay in the country to perform their low wage paying jobs. But that's but that's not why they prevent the massive exodus of African Americans. That's not why at all. Remember, the truth is the opposite from everything that you've been made to believe. The oppressor's depiction of the oppressed is never a true one. It's always negatively distorted to serve the oppressor's nefarious, hidden, oppressive agendas. To hold a people in oppression, you have to convince them that they're supposed to be oppressed. That's a statement by John Henry Clark. So the white society keeps us believing the fraudulent words about ourselves. The oppressor's depiction of the oppressed is never a true one. This has remained consistent throughout history, and it's especially still true now in regards to Black people living under white dominance. Because the ruling elites controls all narratives about African Americans, they've created a false, marginalized perception of African Americans. It's a false perception of African Americans that diminishes the contributions of African Americans towards the building of America as being reduced to us just using our bronze and not our brains. Now, while slavery did greatly benefit America, the hidden reality is that African Americans have actually done more towards the building of America using our brains than we did using our backs. The reason why the ruling elite prevents the massive exodus of African Americans back to Africa, because they know they believe they would be losing their greatest resources, the great genius minds of African Americans. Yes, I know, given how the white society has so falsely denigrated the image of African Americans, that statement sounds laughable to many. When a well-packaged web of lies has been sold gradually to the masses over generations, the truth will seem utterly ridiculous and its speaker will sound like a raving lunatic. I understand that. But remember, I told you that the truth is the opposite from everything that you've been misled to believe. You are perceiving the world as a blind sheep. While publicly denigrating us to the white ruling, to the masses, the white ruling elites secretly, privately envy us. Their negative depictions of African Americans actually bore no relations to our reality whatsoever. The perception of we African Americans within the white society has been deliberately negatively distorted by white propagandists to create and sustain false assumptions within the society that aids in maintaining white social dominance over the Black population. As I said before, the oppressor's depiction of the oppressed is never a true one. It's always negatively distorted to serve the oppressor's nefarious agendas. Now, I'm going to present the true narratives about African Americans that the ruling elites withholds from the masses. These narratives will reveal the ruling elite's reason for preventing the massive exit of African Americans. After slavery was abolished in the U.S. in 1865, the contributions made to the nation by African Americans was extraordinary. In spite of receiving no reparations and being constantly plagued by the evils of white racism, between the years of 1870 through 1940, African Americans submitted 726 invention patterns to the U.S. Patent Office. Those numbers submitted by African Americans more than doubled those submitted by whites during the same time frame, And in spite of the fact that then African Americans made up less than 3% of the total US population. This scenario is amazing. And this scenario of African Americans outpacing white Americans and producing revolutionizing inventions has never stopped. It's merely concealed from the public, from the masses, through the white society's monopoly over information. The hidden fact is that in spite of cultural traumas wrought by the injustices of white racism and slavery, most inventions that have revolutionized the world were either invented by Black people or were directly inspired by early inventions by Black people. Without Black people, there would exist no internet, no cell phones. We wouldn't have cameras and microphones on our cell phones. There would be no emails, no GPS, no hearing aids, no touch-tone phones, no caller ID, no home surveillance security systems, no home game cartridges, no cataract laser removal scope, no caller ID, no touch-tone phones, no modern color PC, no 3D movies, no blood banks, no fiber optics, no nanotechnology, no accurate weather forecasting system. No motorized vehicles, no airplanes, no steam engines, no traffic lights, no working light bulbs, no elevators, therefore no skyscrapers, no air conditioning, no heating, no refrigerators, no refrigerated trucks, no helicopters, no washing machines, no dryers, no lawnmowers, no female sanitary pads, no bathroom tissue holders, no pencil sharpeners, no tricycle, etc., etc. The hidden reality is that there is not a single person on this planet that hasn't benefited by a invention made by Black people. If this fact became commonly known among the masses, it would undermine and then erode the white society's position of social dominance over the Black population. Therefore, this fact is kept from the masses through the white society's monopoly over information. The truth of the matter is that the white ruling class invented the patent office and have always used it to steal the intellectual property rights from Black inventors. You see, in order for Black people to get our inventions mass produced, we have to go before these white companies. These white companies acquire the right to the inventions and then places white faces in front of the technology. This scenario literally allows the white society to continue exploiting the great minds of the Black population while maintaining the perception that most inventions are coming from whites. According to social science, perception is more important than reality because society functions based upon perception. So they create the perception that most inventions are coming from whites. Now, here's a scientific reason that might show why most inventions come from Black people. Within two major studies, one in 1996 and the other in 2018, researchers determined the genetic contribution to intellectual giftedness by analyzing DNA samples from people around the world. According to geneticists, the higher the DNA series within a particular group, the higher the chance of genius existing within a group. In 1996, a study by 15 geneticists from 9 different universities around the world tested DNA series in 136 people from around the world. They first tested the apes. When they tested the orangutan, they found that it only has 3 DNA series. When they tested the gorilla, they found it has 4 DNA series. The chimpanzee has 5. Then they studied Europeans. From England, Germany, France, Russia, and Spain, they found that Europeans have only 6 DNA series. All other groups around the world, people also have 6. Africans, however, have 9 DNA series. Africans, therefore, has the highest probability of genius existing within our group. These findings were published by Yale University. Now, in the 2018 study, researchers analyzed samples from 1,238 people recruited from around the world. Again, all other people have 9 DNA series and all other groups have 6 DNA series and Africans have 9. The fact that Africans have 9 DNA series while everyone else have 6 It prevents a scientific reason why all and most inventions that revolutionize the world are coming from we Africans. Your perception of reality is an elaborate white deception that is designed for maintaining white social dominance. The white society writes all the narratives, so therefore they own the perception of reality. While publicly denigrating us, they secretly, privately envy us. The truth is the opposite from everything that you've been misled to believe. And when I say everything, I do mean everything. Case, point, and proof. The white society has propagated the falsehood that they are the highest evolved Homo sapiens. And they said that we Africans are the lowest, closer to the ape. But the truth of the matter is totally different. We Africans are the only true Homo sapiens. And unlike Caucasians who evolved from primates, we Africans are not on the Darwin evolutionary chart. We have always been Homo sapiens. It is untrue that Caucasians are African albinos that turn white due to migrating to the colder climate. It's been scientifically proven that Caucasians do not suffer from albinism. Their white skin and their hair type are the direct result of their Neanderthal DNA. Neanderthals are totally separate species that evolved separately from we Africans. The scientific name for Caucasians are actually Homo sapiens sapiens, not Homo sapiens, Homo sapiens sapiens. The additional sapiens refer to modern humans that evolved from primates. We Africans are the Homo sapiens who did not evolve from primates. Those who say that Caucasians are come from us, that's what's called an illusory truth effect. It has never been proven that they come from us. It's been repeated so often that people start repeating it as true, start saying it as being true. It is untrue. And that myth it's always been a myth, and it's been proven untrue by science. Caucasians are not African albinos. They come from Neanderthals. They are Neanderthals masquerading as being the highest evolved Homo sapien while claiming that we Africans are the lowest. Everything that we get from the white society are lies that falsely exalts themselves and falsely marginalizes us. It's the narcissistic people they are. It's the only way they know how to be. We must stop functioning based upon their false narratives. We must stop allowing them to tell us who we are and to tell us who they are. Because as long as they're doing it, they're going to keep putting themselves up here and putting us down here. One love and peace.